Hey drummers, hope you're well. Shout out to channel member Tom, who was asking about hi-hat or ride cymbal variations today. Like what variations are next? He said, I've done, classic sort of quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes. And we're thinking here about if you're in 4/4 and the feel is straight. So you're playing something in the realm of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Often drummers will start getting creative, and rightly so, by changing up the bass drum and the snare. That's great. You hear drummers playing. And all that business, and that's completely brilliant. But something that can be really great, I think, is to start changing up the hi-hat and getting into the territory here of, what in the amazing Gary Chaffee books, all of which I love. Time functioning patterns in particular is my favourite, the one I use the most. He talks about developing a time feel. So we're not just playing a drum beat. One of the sort of things, one of the sort of holy grails we're all working towards, or I feel like I'm anyway trying to as a drummer, is that idea of being comfortable playing a time feel. So rather than just a repeating drum beat, one of the great things is just developing that freedom to play a time feel. I should say sometimes a repeating drum beat is what the music requires, in which case we play that. But very often, and especially in a live setting, we want that time feel. So what I'm playing here is hopefully in time and moves forward, has a sense of pulse, and has the things that are most important about a drum beat. It has that, again, that forward momentum, that timing, that sort of, most of the time, snare drum hit on 2 and 4, bass drum somewhere around beat 1 and beat 3. But it's not, again, a 1 bar or 2 bar or 4 bar loop. It's a changing time feel. It's human. It's one of the reasons that human drummers still get gigs to come and play, because they can deliver that, a beautiful, slightly changing, organic, human time feel. So changing up the hi-hat is a really good way to achieve that. Now, when we think about the sort of, when we start changing up the hi-hat, I'd say there are 3, maybe call it 4, like the big 4 hi-hat parts or hi-hat feels, note values basically, are quarter notes, first of all. Crotchets on the hi-hat, eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the most popular drum beat in the world, I reckon, eighth notes on the hi-hat, the straight eighths feel. In all cases here, I'm just playing the kick and the snare on 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 16th notes on the hi-hat. Obviously, you can play that with 1 stick like that, or play it with 2. And then maybe number 4, I would say, like most popular, might be offbeat eighths. So just playing the ands. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. So I would consider those 4 variations like the big 4. Quarter notes, eighth notes, 16ths, and then offbeat eighths. This is, again, assuming we're in 4/4, assuming it's straight, not swung, and assuming it's got a regular kind of feel. Obviously, we're not looking at triplets or anything like that here, a regular straight ahead feel. So I reckon the next 2, this is what this video is about, he said, finally getting to the point. This is what Tom was asking about. I reckon where you go next are 2 types of rhythm. They're both 3-note type patterns, and the first one is 1 E and you repeat it on every beat. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. So it's 2 16ths joined to 1 eighth note. 1 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and. And the second one is 1 ander, and this is actually, I think, of the 2. This is I can think of more songs that have this this hi-hat pulse. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So on each beat, 1 ander, 1 ander, 2 ander, 3 ander, 4 ander, 1 2 ander, 3 ander, 4 ander, 1. So I reckon if you think of songs like Boogie on Reggae Woman by Stevie Wonder, or if you know How Long by Ace, Paul Carrick, that has, on the original anyway, pretty much that all the way through. That's a roast, man, playing that all the way through. So I reckon that one's probably slightly more popular, but in the, like I say, in the spirit of sort of creating a time feel, I reckon both of these two are great. Let's have a look at that first one again, 1 E and. So 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. Now, most of the time, the way I think of this is on the beat, we're going to play a little emphasis. So it's like 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. The basic idea with both of these is we're playing with one stick for the feel that we've got there. If you try and play with two sticks, that can be fine as well, but well, for a start, you lose one of the higher hits when you hit the snare if you're going 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, and also it just feels different. I'm talking about here using one stick on the hi-hat, which, as well as being great grooves, is a brilliant sort of technique builder, I've got to say as well. So I think of it as a little emphasis on the beat. If you're playing on the hi-hat, you don't have to, but typically you might play the shaft of the stick on the edge of the hi-hat on the beat, and then the like and each, or E and in this case, each time you might play them on the top. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and. If you're on the ride, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. I reckon you're digging in a bit on the beat, and then the E and is a bit softer, but that's kind of my default way of playing it. Now the challenge comes, of course, as we start getting faster and we need to play for longer periods of time. So it's a nice chance to think about like technique, I guess, how you're playing it. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. Now something that can really, really come in, for me anyway, in my view of this, is finger control. Your fingers helping out the stick. When you start playing trickier or busier patterns like that on a ride cymbal or a hi-hat, of course you get the fingers involved. Now the way I tend to think of this as, if you're playing 1 E and, the first note, the one on the beat, I'm throwing it down. I'll play it on the ride cymbal here so you can see more clearly. On the beat, I think of that as a wrist movement, kind of a whipping motion. Not going to get into talking about molar technique here, or the molar whip type of stroke, but I would say there's an element of whip to this, especially as you're going quicker. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. It's not huge, but there's an element of whip there. But the really important bit is we're using our wrist for the first note. I'm using my wrist. Then letting the stick bounce, right? This is a classic, a bit like a bounce double stroke. Here the stick is bouncing up and hinging. Here. Hinging there, I think of my fulcrum here as between my finger and my thumb, the top crease in my index finger and my thumb. I know people sometimes think of the fulcrum in different positions and second finger and all that business, but I'm thinking of it here in the simplest possible terms between my finger, top crease in my index finger and the sort of fleshy part of my thumb. Stick bounces up there. And actually I'm using my fingers a lot on the other two notes. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. So I'm letting it bounce up on the first one, throwing it down from my wrist. If I didn't do anything else, the stick would just bounce a whole load of times. And then stop. But as it is, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. I personally like playing that with the thumb on top, so-called French hand position. I really like that and I find that comfortable. Then again, I've played it more like that. For me, it always felt like when you're doing bouncing the stick and using your fingers, it always felt like the stick rebounded back in a nice straight line. Whereas if I was more in the German position with the back of the hand facing up, or the American with the sort of somewhere in between those two, I always felt like, personally, this is only my take on it, I was working against the angle of the bounce a little bit. Well, I can still play it. I always feel most comfortable with thumb on top. So that's that one, 1 E and that's super useful, I think. Obviously, you don't have to play it all the way through the bar. It might be nice to practice it like that to get a flow going, but you don't have to. Obviously, you pepper it in with, going back to that idea of the time feel, pepper it in with the other things that you're playing. So that's one E and then the other one and-er. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Now this is 3 hits in a row still, but it's a bit different, isn't it? So you play 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Now think of that whipping movement as being a bit more pronounced in this rhythm. So you play that on the 1. 1. You're going to have a little pause there. You play your whip and the stick will kind of stay low. The great Dom Famularo often talks about giving it a squeeze, doesn't he? You play your whip and then you give the stick a little squeeze just to hold it there. And then and-er, when we're playing slow, they're sort of wristy movements, low wristy movements. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. But as we get quicker, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. I would absolutely say that they're also played in a big way with the fingers at the back. So helping out that lovely hinging here and the fingers helping out. So 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1, 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Now, obviously, when a lot of drummers play this, especially on a ride cymbal, they'll hit the bell on the beat, and then the and-er, they'll just come away from the bell, so you get that 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Not compulsory, but that's a really cool way to do it as well, I think. So I would say they're the big two. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a pad off this kit. 1 second. Hello, right. What I'm going to do now is play them up close for you. Here we go. First of all, I'm going to do 1 E and. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and, 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. So throwing it down on the beat from the wrist, and then the E and, much more the fingers. 1 E and, 2 E and, 3 E and, 4 E and. Okay, now I'll play some 1 and-er. So 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So a little whip on the beat. 1 and-er, much more the fingers. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Hopefully that's helpful. Okay, cool. And here we are back on the kit. Let's play them a little bit. Now, the thing is, I always say this phrase, but it's true. It really does depend how long you've been playing and what sort of things you've been doing to practice. One of the big things I always do with my drumming students, and because it's just so helpful for me and helps me sort of keep sharp on these skills as best I can. And I always pretty much always put this for almost every channel member who has a practice plan. These pretty much always feature at some point, sooner or later, and that is the sort of two big physical techniques drummers often think about outside of just playing, a regular hit on the drum from the wrist. One is that molar style whip, and the other one is finger control. And I've made various videos about that, but the simplest drills I always think are the best. So I generally, as a starting point, have a drill of just doing right stick, left stick, and then both sticks. So for the molar thing, say that you're doing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and you'd go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and a bit of right stick, then a bit of left stick, and then a bit of both sticks. And every time you complete, you go a little faster. And left stick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and both sticks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And same thing for working the fingers. Right stick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And left stick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. and both sticks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And every time you complete, go a bit faster. And left stick. 1, 2, 3, 4. And both sticks. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. And there's simple classic drills for all time, aren't they? So obviously depends how much you've been doing that kind of stuff. Not enough in my case. And I need, you need to obviously build that up, because then when you're playing these grooves, obviously that's what you're relying on. And the whole point of doing rudiment and physical skill practice in part 1 of your practice plan, if part 1 is, for most people, part 1 would be your hands, part 2 is your head, part 3 is your heart. So in part 1, where you're doing your hand stuff, the whole point of doing those lovely practice pad type drills is that then when you're on the kit making music, you can trust your hands. This is what it becomes about for me. It becomes about trust. Like, you can relax at that point, and actually you say, all right, I'm good. Yeah, I trust my hands to play this. I'm not wondering whether my hands are going to be able to do it. I just, you've done the work, you've done some practice at that point, and you say, okay, I trust my hands to play this. So that's what that's all about. Obviously, we're leaning on a decent level with those physical skills when we play these parts. So let's have a little play. Let's do 1 E and. 1 E and. 2 E and. We'll go real slow. 3 E and. 4 E and. 1 E and. 2 E and. 3 E and. 4 E and. Let's build it up. 1 E and. 1 E and. 2 E and. 3 E and. And let's do 1 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Let's go slower. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Here it comes. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Cool. So, like I said, I reckon they're the next two. Not saying they're easy. I find them challenging, honestly, myself. But I'm not saying they're easy. But I reckon they are the next two. After you've done your quarter notes, your eighths, your sixteenths, and your offbeat eighths, I reckon those two come next. Obviously, playing them like that in their pure form of just repeating that same pattern over and over is by far I think physically the most difficult to do. Personally, when you are using them just as spice, in your groove, then they could be much easier to play because you're not sustaining the same movement for prolonged periods of time. So things like using them here and there is, for most drummers, physically a bit easier. But I reckon they're the next two. They're loads of fun. Of course, what you can do, going back to this idea I'm always waffling on about, you're never, ever off duty, right? When you're listening to music that you love, just play along. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a, even if you're not on the rest of the kit, if you're on a tabletop, on your shoe, on a practice pad if you've got one handy, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a and then 1 EAN, 2 EAN, 3 EAN, 4 EAN, 1 EAN, 2 EAN, 3 EAN, 4 EAN. I've done a lot of driving to London in the last few weeks for gigs and stuff over Christmas, and I would never do this when the car is moving, obviously. But as many of you will know, when you're on the North Circular in particular, most of the time you're not moving. Always on the dashboard, I've got especially my left stick, I've got a little stick in the glove box. You know those Vic Firth sticks that've got the practice pad built into the end? I've got those. And on the dashboard, 1 EAN, 2 EAN, 3 EAN, 4 EAN, or 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And I can only repeat, not while the car is moving at all, but when stationary, I work on that. You're just never off duty. So I just think building and building and building on that. Obviously, that is in terms of the physical skill involved there, for me anyway, is a sort of lifelong project that you never reach the end of. People often, I think, are very confused about this, and they say things like, "Oh, I'm struggling to play that," and then you say to them, "Well, how long have you been playing?" and the drums, and they'll say, "Well, 3 months or something." And you think, well, no, come on, man. Like, obviously, this is a physical skill that takes time and time and time to build. I've been playing the drums for a lot of years. I'm nowhere near where I'd like to be with, the level of comfort playing those sort of patterns. But I think they're the next two, and I absolutely love them as variety. So, yeah, shout out to Tom. Great question. Hope that's helpful. I always do my best to answer the channel member questions in the most honest way I can, so hopefully that was useful. Shout out to Tom. Thanks for watching as always. I really appreciate it. Please like, share and subscribe, and thanks as always to all the amazing people who support this channel by buying me a virtual coffee at Buy Me a Coffee. You can find the link to that above or below based on where you're watching this, or you can become a channel member like Tom. For £10 a month you can support this channel and help it grow. Thanks a million as ever to all the amazing channel members who do that. You get a whole load of stuff in return, including members videos, a customized practice plan for you, feedback on your drumming, your questions answered, ongoing drum support by email and video responses, priority requests for future videos on the channel like Tom has done here, and a whole load of other stuff besides as well. So if you found these videos helpful or useful and you'd like to support by either buying a coffee or becoming a channel member, please take a look at that support page I've got above or below. Thanks a million for watching as always. Really appreciate it. Any questions, give us a shout. See you soon.